It's hard to believe that just a few years ago, there were only 80 million people marching to starvation around the world. That's starvation, not chronic hunger. Then it jumped to 135. Why? Man-made conflict and climate shocks. That's before COVID. COVID comes along, just economic devastation, supply chain disruption around the world. The number goes from 135 to 276 million people. You think it can't get any worse. Then the breadbasket of the world is shut down, Ukraine. Now the longest bread lines in the world. The number has now jumped from 276 million people to 350 million people marching to starvation, not knowing where the next meal is coming from, because Ukraine alone grew enough food to feed 400 million people. Now, compounded with the fertilizer crisis, the fuel crisis, I could go on and on. It's all bubbling all around the world. The world is in serious trouble right now. When this whole war started, everybody was focused on the Eastern Front. And I was like, look, we got to get down to Odessa. We got to get those ports open. If we don't get these ports open, you're going to have hell on earth. And that's when I tweeted to Putin saying, if you don't open these ports, there will be famine across the world. And so we negotiated with many friends coming to the table, because I don't care if you love or hate Russia. You got to have their food and their fertilizer. The world right now is in big demand of fertilizers and food. If we're not careful, we will have a shortage of food by the end of this year, or the food pricing will be so high, you'll have destabilization of nations that will result in mass migration, which will cost 1,000 times more than what we're talking about. We were expecting to announce famine in Somalia, for example, because they've had 4 or 5 back-to-back seasons of droughts, 40 years of unprecedented no rain. The United States, Germany, and other donors stepped up in magnificent ways, and we've been able to, I don't know if the right word's avert famine, but we definitely have postponed it. But they are facing unprecedented climate impact. And not just them, we can go to other areas like the Somali region of Ethiopia, the entire Horn of Africa, parts of Kenya. And then you get into Western Africa having droughts and the impact. We're looking at food production in Africa being down. We're already looking at food production down in India, Argentina, the United States. I can go on and on. So this is a serious issue. And who's going to pay the biggest price? The poorest of the poor. So if we don't get ahead of this, you will have mass migration and potentially mass starvation in nations around the world.